Smart is coming back. The days of just picking teams based on a coin toss are over. You need the latest stats, odds, and information. Make a plan. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Well, duh. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
The only place in football where the offense is always on the field is on Moneyline. With the two best hosts in radio, Donnie Rightside.
If anybody wasn't watching, let's not know what you were doing.
And Kevin Walsh.
Forget act like you've been there before.
On the SportsGrid Radio Network, Sirius XM Channel 159.
Best hour of your day now officially underway. It is a Football Friday right here on the SportsGrid Network, Sirius XM Channel 159. I'm your host, Donnie Rightside, here on a solo mission for the next hour. And we have a lot to talk about, which includes a full slate of NFL action this Sunday, a doubleheader on Monday, which, again, we're probably not going to handicap the doubleheader, but we just want to get excited. And what we thought was going to be an unbelievably good start to the weekend. Why? Because we had the Rams and the 49ers on Thursday Night Football. We knew there was going to be a little bit of showers passing through the area in Santa Clara, and boy, was there. That final score ended up 12-6. There wasn't a single touchdown scored in that game last night. If you were saying, you know what, before the game, I'm feeling a little frisky. I think that game's going under, which was around between 50.5 to 48.5 by the time we got to game time. Congratulations, you nailed that. If you were even crazier, you might have gone out and said to yourself, hey, I don't even think there's going to be a single touchdown scored last night. Well, if you did, guess what? You cashed in a ticket at a 200 to 1 price on no touchdown scored in that game. Most of us have an eye typically on overs. Granted, did I bet a total yesterday? No, I didn't. But from a prop betting perspective last night, it was a bloodbath on my end. As many of you are listening out here, probably the same. And it's not that we just auto bet overs. You try to pick and choose because the NFL is an offensive league. The game is geared towards more offense than defense. You had two teams, and we understand they are divisional opponents, and it was a short work week. Maybe they don't get to the 48 or 49 points, but they at least get into the mid-30s or higher because of how crazy low scoring that game would be. It was even worse last night. And quite frankly, I'm astonished that the Rams even were able to win that game. If you watch the way that game was playing out over the first quarter and a half, Matthew Stafford looked like he was a rookie, undrafted quarterback that was thrown into a football game where he's never played an NFL game. He was atrocious in the first half. He was throwing balls that basically were clear interceptions that you just couldn't get a handle on if you were the San Francisco 49ers. And as handicappers and gamblers, we understand what momentum means. And what I mean by that is, if you don't take advantage of a struggling football team when it's there to go up double digits, it usually comes back around to bite you, and it did last night. The Rams were getting, 2.5 points, I guess, around game time. They end up winning again, 12-6, 18 total points in that game. Absolutely, I'm telling you, absolutely incredible that it played out that way. Looking at the box score, Matthew Stafford, 16 of 27 for $160. I think he had 20 yards at the half and 1 or 2 completions. You look at the receiving situation for the Los Angeles Rams, Puka Nacua somehow still, the freak athlete that he is, had 7 catches for 97 yards in that game on 8 targets, which included that long play of 51 yards. The other wide receivers on the Los Angeles Rams combined for 0 catches. And that includes Cooper Kupp, who had 3 targets, no receptions, and no yards. So if I just gave you the box score before the game actually played yesterday, and Matthew Stafford threw for 160 yards and no touchdowns, and Cooper Kupp didn't catch a pass, the 49ers probably won that game 30-6 themselves. But it didn't turn out that way. Brock Purdy was okay in the rain in the first half, abysmal in the second half, which included a terrible interception. Kyron Williams, 29 carries for 108 yards, held it down on the ground, only 3.7 yards per carry, but that's what you got. And also, when we're looking at weather conditions, didn't expect it to be that bad for most of the first half. Now, understand it. Weather sometimes is unpredictable. It is what it is. You had a 3-3 game at the break. So I said, okay, let's reconvene. Got the updated weather reports for the second half. And you know what? Rain was clearing out. So I said, okay, now's the time. First half didn't work out. Clean second half. We're expecting, you go in, you change your jersey, you change your uniform, you get dried off, you change your cleat, you change your gloves, you get the point, you get the fresh towels, and you move on. And the minute we saw the opening kickoff of the second half, hey, it's not raining anymore. And it wouldn't rain the rest of the night until I think like the last minute it started coming down again. So I had bet then at the half, give me over 1 touchdown pass for each quarterback in this second half, figuring the offense would open up. And they did have some opportunities, but nobody threw a touchdown pass in that game, which is crazy when you think of those two offenses. Also in that game, in the second half, I said, you know what? I think I'm getting a bargain basement price on Cooper Kupp. It's now going to stop raining. He was at like 27.5 yards, depending on what book you were shopping at for the game at the half. And keep in mind, he didn't have any yards. I said, it'll open up in the second half for him. Got nothing. So from the opening bets that I had, a couple prop bets, prop parlays, which went down, still you were lining up going like, I have this one. I should be lined up easily here because I had George Kittle 25 yards over, attached to Cooper Kupp getting 40 yards in that game. I mean, it was insane. It really was. The way it played out. But sometimes you got to lick your wounds and move on. That was a disgraceful game from a betting angle for me. Crunched my bank account as we look towards Sunday. And it's funny, I had such a good week last week. Came into Monday Night Football and would have just got my money back and moved on if Cooper Rush could have thrown for 200 yards and he couldn't do it. Then parlayed into a game which I thought we might have had some juice between the Rams and 49ers. The rain de-juiced that game. But the Rams now moved to 8-6, and now you can probably officially say the San Francisco 49ers are done for the year. Mathematically, are they? No, they're not. But this team now sits 6-8, has to go on the road to take on the Miami Dolphins, fighting for a playoff spot, come home and take on the Detroit Lions, fighting for the number 1 overall seed, and then the Cardinals on the road to end the season, where maybe the Cardinals might be playing for something. It's over for the 49ers, and they've now lost 4 of 5 games. Blasted by the Packers, blasted by the Bills. They smashed the Bears, and then lost embarrassingly at home on a Thursday night to the Rams. Also, we're on the desk on Pro Football Today for in-game action. We have a great time throughout, even when the games stink and I'm not winning money. Still got to be up there, still got to analyze, still have to have fun. But we didn't get to see, until I woke up this morning, Devondre Campbell, who was the starting lineup for Dre Greenlaw throughout the year. Dre Greenlaw comes back, and by the way, was all over the field the first half. Gets a little bit banged up, and Devondre Campbell of the 49ers decides he doesn't want to play football for the 49ers anymore. So you know how it goes. Hey, I'm the third linebacker. There's 2 linebackers in. 1 linebacker goes down. Hey, Devondre, get in there. We need you. Yeah, coach, I'm not going in. What? Get in there. Dre Greenlaw's banged up a bit. Needs a little bit of a breather. No, I'm not going there. Walked off the field, and basically, I haven't seen any updates, but from what I was reading after the game, Kyle Shanahan, George Kittle, Ward, a lot of people had things to say about him. I would be surprised if he's not cut before lunchtime today, people. We got a lot to look forward to, which includes an action-packed Sunday slate. It's a Football Friday right here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Donnie Rightside. Let's get through, baby, and let's win some money. We'll be right back.
We're the club you want to join, even though we'd have you as a member.
You'll like it here. We have munchies.
And the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Stanley, the popular drinkware brand, has voluntarily recalled approximately 2.6 million switchback and trigger action travel mugs due to a potential burn hazard. This update brought to you by Verizon. According to the company, the lid threads on the mug can shrink when exposed to heat and torque, causing the lid to detach during use, posing a burn hazard. Worldwide, Stanley received 91 reports about the faulty products, with 16 coming from the U.S. The detaching lids resulted in 38 burn injuries worldwide, 2 of which came from the U.S. Sean Diddy Combs is accused of sexually assaulting 3 men, including one of his former employees, who he allegedly plied with spiked alcoholic drinks, according to new lawsuits filed Thursday in New York. One of the men worked for the rap mogul and alleged his former boss raped him at a hotel. The lawsuits alleged a similar pattern of conduct by Combs between 2019 and 2022. The assaults are alleged to have happened at New York City hotels and in East Hampton. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
This year, American farmers will harvest 2.8 billion bushels of wheat and 15.1 billion bushels of corn. And to this day, American road workers have built 4.2 million miles of roads and counting. We're proud that John Deere machines rolling off the line here in the USA play a part in supporting Americans who work the land and build a better tomorrow. Nothing runs like a Deere. Learn more at johndeere.com/manufacturing.
Not to brag, but Progressive's Name Your Price tool is mankind's greatest tool ever. Even better than the wheel. Sure, without the wheel, we wouldn't have modern transportation or funny videos of dogs riding skateboards. But without the Name Your Price tool, we wouldn't have easy access to auto insurance options based on our budget. And, well, cars do need wheels. They also need insurance, and insurance never goes flat. Learn more about the greatest tool ever, the Name Your Price tool at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
You've heard of smart bombs,
Smartphones, smart cars, smart watches, and smart glasses.
now you can add smart player.
Giving you sports gaming strategies and information 24/7. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Yeah, man.
So many ways to watch and listen, people. SportsGrid app, absolutely fantastic. If you haven't downloaded it, what are you waiting for? SportsGridRadio.com, as well as you're listening now on Sirius XM channel 159 and also on YouTube. SportsGrid on demand. If you want to watch the radio show, you want to do it for free, you want to get in the chat box, you want to share that information, it's the best way to do it. And also, you know me, as a host, love to reach out, love social media on X at Right Side VP. You want to have any questions to the show? We are a digital show. We love the show's input. And it is my dream that maybe once again, we will be able to take phone calls on the show. Because I know a lot of people listen. A lot of people used to call in, but it is what it is as we fight through, as I should say. Just get a hold of me at Right Side VP on Twitter /X or on our YouTube channel. Once again, SportsGrid on demand on YouTube. About just short of 7,000 subscribers there. Always trying to build it. Get in there, subscribe, have some fun, reach out, talk, and get it together because it is a Football Friday, and it's the way we get down. Not a lot of action because usually, which is great, on Fridays, it's like, hey, the NBA, only a couple games last night. NBA Cup coming up, I believe, tomorrow. Like, that's how out of touch I am right now with basketball. There are some college basketball games, but it's really like finals week for college, as we wait to get through the final parts of the silly season until we get to January, the meat and bones of the schedule, and the conferences start to have play for the most part, even though we have seen the Big Ten get after it quite a bit at this point. Fridays I love because we get the final practice reports, and you can start to settle in to some of those props and some of those players that you want to pick. Touchdown props, passing props, rushing props, receiving props. You get the point of it. But let's just do a quick look here at the weather conditions for this weekend, and also Monday Night Football. But by the way, Monday Night Football, 2 domes. Don't need to take a look at any of those weather conditions. Because last night, again, reading the forecast all game, light rain in the first half, which wasn't really all that light at times. In the second quarter was basically who can survive until halftime. Smash that total if you had it. Smash the player props as everything went to the ground and quarterbacks looked like they could barely throw the football. Hopefully we don't see those conditions that you're betting this weekend if you need to cash in some props. But first, Washington and New Orleans, Washington and New Orleans. That's a dome. Don't have to worry about it. Miami and Houston, it's a dome. We don't have to worry there. How about Jacksonville? The New York Jets head down there to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars. 72 degrees, no rain in the forecast, winds around 10 miles per hour. No issues whatsoever there. We'll head to Tennessee, where the Cincinnati Bengals still trying to fight for a playoff spot, going against the impotent Tennessee Titans. Cloudy, 55 degrees, a chance of precipitation. Looks like it's around 25%, and wind speed around 10 to 11 miles per hour. Looks like we should be good to go there also. Okay, let's keep moving forward now. Baltimore and New York, MetLife Stadium in the Meadowlands in northern New Jersey. Cooler temperatures, 35 degrees. Precipitation, none. Wind speeds, under 5 miles per hour. So there you go. Don't have to worry about any weather there. Kansas City and Cleveland. 1 o'clock game once also on Sunday. You have drizzle throughout this football game. So precipitation around 40%. Temperatures are cool here. It's in the 30s. Certainly not great football weather there. And windy conditions sustained at north of 15 miles per hour. So you will have some conditions in Cleveland to worry about when the Kansas City Chiefs come to town. Dallas is going to go on the road to take on the Carolina Panthers on Sunday. Cloudy conditions. Temperature's going to be in the mid-40s. No precipitation and light winds. So not much there that you have to worry about on that card. So let me just tick off, where is it? Kansas City and Cleveland. Okay, we'll keep it there. 425 action. Some of the biggest games of this year are scheduled. Pittsburgh taking on Philadelphia in Philadelphia. Sun goes down, gets a little cooler. It'll be in the 30s at kickoff. No precipitation, but also wind speeds, 5 miles per hour and under. Very clean football conditions in Philadelphia for that game. Nothing really to worry about. Buffalo and Detroit. I know a lot of people out there, and rightfully so, extremely hype about that game too. It's in a dome. Don't have to worry about any of those conditions. Let's head out to another 425 game in Colorado. The Indianapolis Colts, a dome team, heading outdoors to take on the Denver Broncos. This game, how about this? You would figure like we're just talking about like Philadelphia, high 30s, temperatures colder in Cleveland. Now we take a look at the Denver Broncos. You figure it's going to be freezing cold out there, right? Not the case. 52 degrees at kickoff, no precipitation, and winds starting around 10 miles an hour at game time, but dipping to under 5 miles an hour at Empower Field at Mile High. No real conditions to worry about out in Denver. Tampa Bay and Los Angeles, obviously we know SoFi Stadium, that is a dome. 425 game, New England and Arizona, that is a dome. Then we get to the night game, which has a huge impact in the NFC, specifically in the West, to try to win the division for Seattle and also for the Green Bay Packers to hang in that wild card race. Great game there. That is outdoors as we know. And if we're looking at the weather conditions in Seattle, cloudy, 45 degrees, slight chance of precipitation, and wind speeds around 3 miles per hour. So if we are looking at a mid-December Sunday NFL slate, it's pretty good. I would say the only game you would have to worry about would be Kansas City, and it would be Cleveland. That line, 4.5, as a favorite towards Kansas City, and the total in that game listed at 43.5. Okay, so let's set the table for this weekend, because as you guys know, listening to me many times, we like to pick on from a prop betting perspective on Sunday, bad defenses for the most part. Did you know, however, because I sometimes like to break the trend, and we'll get to that Philadelphia Eagles game versus the Pittsburgh Steelers in just a moment. If we're looking at ticket counts here, lined up on the Pittsburgh Steelers on my counter is what I'm looking at. 81% of the tickets on Pittsburgh, 19% on the Philadelphia Eagles. That line opened up at 5.5. It still sits at 5.5 across the board. The total of 45.5 has dropped down to 43 at most outlets, and even FanDuel showing a 42.5. The reason I bring that up is sometimes I like to be contrarian and say, I actually think we get points in this game. George Pickens isn't going to play. Obviously, the Philadelphia Eagles primarily healthy on offense. But did you know, according to Pro Football Focus, the number 1 and number 2 defenses in the NFL, it's the Philadelphia Eagles and it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's start with that game right out of the break on a Football Friday right here on the SportsGrid Network.
We never stop giving you sports gaming strategies and information 24 hours a day,
7 days a week. Business hours are for losers.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
In 2007, the Mitchell Report is publicly released, listing the names of 89 Major League players linked to steroids.
For more than a decade, there has been widespread illegal use of anabolic steroids and other performance-enhancing substances by players in Major League Baseball.
Some of the game's best were mentioned, like Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, and Sammy Sosa. For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
Chinese researchers have created a robot that can identify plants just by touching them. Mimicking the delicate touch of human skin, identifying plant species with 97% accuracy, sensing moisture and texture machine vision can't see. That's a very good practice. The goal? An army of robot farm workers tirelessly monitoring, fertilizing, and applying pesticide to individual plants 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, increasing crop yields. Even identifying dangerous plant species. That would be poison ivy. Follow me at Capalbo on X, and stay tuned to the Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
Oh my God, they're not gonna cover against a bare naked ladies team. Are you kidding me? They had Fat Mo Wagner playing. They were in the game the entire night. The Bucks almost effed this up too. Ever since they got that Doc Rivers, they've been a disaster.
It's Pharrell Coast to Coast with Scott Farrell. Weekdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. On the home of the winning edge, the SportsGrid Radio Network.
There, Sporto.
We know you've been hurt in the past. Big stations with big promises lied to you, suckered you in.
We don't do that.
We're the real deal.
You can take our information to the bank. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. And now, back to Moneyline with Kevin Walsh and Donnie Rightside.
It's your boy DRS here on a solo mission Football Friday, Sirius XM channel 159, and we're going to start right away, as I teased before the break. The Philadelphia Eagles and the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers head to Philadelphia, a marquee matchup. Two teams looking to win their division and maybe the possibility of a higher seed, like a number 2 or a number 1 heading into the playoffs. As we said, the Philadelphia Eagles are favored in this game Sunday afternoon at a 5.5 number. 42.5 primarily is that total. Just looking at FanDuel right now, as we're going to go over some player props here in just a few moments. But if we are lining this up, and again, just looking at Pro Football Focus, some of the numbers where you start there and then sort of filter down. As I told you, the Eagles and the Steelers are 1 and 2 in the NFL in overall defensive rating. You know who's number 3? It's the Detroit Lions. I'm baffled sometimes because of how quickly you can turn things around in the NFL. Detroit last year on defense was a sieve. The Philadelphia Eagles on defense were an absolute sieve. And now they sit 1 and 3 respectively in those defensive ratings. It is impressive. But how do we attack this game? Both of the quarterbacks have manageable numbers because of what we just said. Two good defenses. We went over the weather conditions. They're not going to be, providing a roadblock in this game for scoring. That helps. Jalen Hurts' passing prop number, he's averaging 165 yards over the past 5 games, which is ridiculous. He's at 194 in this game. Russell Wilson is at 197.5. George Pickens won't play, but 2 quarterbacks playing well this year with team records are under 200. Now look at this number. This is quite frankly insane. I understand 2 good defenses, yes. Jalen Hurts to throw over 1.5 touchdown passes, plus 195. That's like Mitchell Trubisky territory. That's like rookie quarterback territory. That's like Will Levis territory. Let's take a look at Russell Wilson's number to throw 2 touchdowns on Sunday. Over 1.5, it's plus 198. It's almost 2 to 1 for him to throw a touchdown. So sometimes I look and say, on let's just say regular touchdown props, if I think the quarterback's going to have a good game, you take the 1 and 2 wide receiver. They're both plus money. You hopefully get one. It's plus money. Get both of them. It's an unbelievable day. Is there anybody out there that would just say, you know what, I'll take a flyer this weekend on this game and bet both sides with your roughly 2-1 return, Jalen Hurts and Russell Wilson? I think it's profitable. I think one of those guys at least throws 2 touchdown passes in this game. Now, if we are looking at rush defenses, the Pittsburgh Steelers slightly better rush defense than the Philadelphia Eagles. 2 great pass rushes. The Eagles, and then, by the way, let me just flip this around to see who the top pass rushing teams are. Oh, look at that. Number 1, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. Number 2, it's the Philadelphia Eagles. Whose offensive line is going to hold up better at that point, right? So if we look at team pass blocking, the Philadelphia Eagles are top 5 in the NFL. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, I scroll down to 24th, advantage Pittsburgh Steelers. But if we are looking at coverage skills, the number 1 team in the NFL is the Philadelphia Eagles. If we go down and try to find the Pittsburgh Steelers, they are 21st. So let's flip it over to receiving yards in this game. A.J. Brown, man, God love him. One of the best wideouts in football, unhappy that he's not getting the football repeatedly. And me, as a wide receiver, which if you're looking live there's a picture of my background as I try to point to myself, which way are we going? This way. See that picture right there? That's me making my record-breaking catch way back in 1999. The reason I bring that up, we always want the football as wide receivers. We believe we are open on every single play. If we are the primary target and don't get the football, we, as wide receivers, get upset. He's listed at 80.5 as his prop in this game. Devonta Smith, who also is a great wide receiver, he's only 49.5. Are we buying into, because the narrative, as we like to say, for the San Francisco 49ers last night, as you saw from play number 1, is, we got to get the football over to Deebo Samuel. How'd that work out last night? Deebo had 16 yards receiving in that game. You got to be kidding me. Can you upset the apple cart? Does AJ go nuts? 80-plus and a touchdown? Boy, oh boy, what a game between the Eagles and the Steelers coming up on Sunday. Let's flip it back over. Other games, Detroit and Buffalo, they're up next. Let's get after it right here on Moneyline.
You're listening to your source of sports gaming strategies and information.
We call it the winning edge.
It helps make the odds even.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders. Former New England Patriots head coach Bill Belichick's officially been named the head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels. It's a 5-year deal. Belichick officially introduced at a press conference on Thursday. He says he can't wait to get started.
Michael and I have made trips down here to scout players. But, I'd say the overall impression, great place to go to school, great program, but, it's been a while. 1980, that was the heyday, really, and we got Taylor right after that at the Giants, and talked so much about, the Tar Heels and their great program, and kind of hasn't been to that point since. So, I think there's a lot of pride in this program, and, I want to do everything I can here to help, take it to the highest level.
Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
I juggle a lot. And managing constipation with belly pain from my irritable bowel syndrome with constipation, or IBS-C, with laxatives and fiber isn't enough. My doctor recommended a way to get ahead of it. Then I said yes to Linzess.
Linzess linaclotide is a prescription medicine that treats IBS-C in adults. It's not a laxative. It's a once-daily pill that helps you get ahead of your symptoms. It's proven to help you have more frequent and complete bowel movements and helps relieve overall abdominal symptoms, belly pain, discomfort, and bloating. These symptoms were studied in combination, not individually. Do not give Linzess to children less than 2. It may harm them. Do not take Linzess if you have a bowel blockage. Get immediate help if you develop unusual or severe stomach pain, especially with bloody or black stools. The most common side effect is diarrhea, sometimes severe. If it's severe, stop taking taking Linzess and call your doctor right away. Other side effects include gas, stomach area pain, and swelling. Talk to your doctor and learn more at linzess.com or call 1-800-LANZESS.
Be the master of your domain. Get the SportsGrid mobile app so now you can get the winning edge while your wife is in a dressing room trying on stuff while you wait patiently on the uncomfortable chair. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Finishing up out of those Steelers-Eagles prop bets here, as we talked about A.J. Brown at 80.5. Somebody is going to have to catch passes for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know, who's going to do that? See Jared Hollinger out there saying, you know, it's hard to bet on the Steelers with Pickens out. Their offense simply doesn't work. Be interesting. Because we see Devontae at 49.5, A.J. Brown 80.5. If you want to get down to Grant Calcaterra, backup tight end filling in for Dallas Goedert, who's injured, will be out a couple weeks. But if you flip it over to the Steelers, again, somebody has to catch passes. You're getting bargains all over the place. We're waiting for Mike Williams to emerge in that offense. Mike Tomlin tells you he's going to be coming on each and every week with a little bit more. Mike Williams, 21.5. Van Jefferson, 23.5. Jaylen Warren out of the backfield, 18.5. Calvin Austin III, 25.5. Pat Freiermuth, tight end, 34.5. Najee Harris, 11.5. Like, there is a lot of buy low points here for the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday. Rushing props, Saquon Barkley. Let me just go to rushing defense statistics. Top 5 in the country. It's a top country, as I'm talking college football. Top 5 in the NFL. Pittsburgh Steelers at number 4. You say, ooh, they should be able to hold Saquon Barkley down. Well, the Baltimore Ravens were a 76.5 rating for their defense. Top 3 in the NFL. Weren't able to hold Saquon down. Saquon Barkley comes into this game, guys. His rushing prop, 99.5. So it's basically 100 going up against the Steelers here. Kenneth Gainwell, 11.5. Jalen Hurts, 37.5. Najee Harris, lead dog for the Pittsburgh Steelers at 54.5. Jaylen Warren, 29.5. How do you attack that, guys, out there? Like, how would you be thinking? If you're going to take rushing props, just go top-end spectrum. Saquon Barkley trying to win the MVP, trying to chase down Eric Dickerson as the all-time leading rusher single season in the NFL. Or is that just a bridge too far? Like, if you ask, like, yeah, you probably expect, no matter what, Saquon to get 100 yards. He's going to get 20 touches in the game. But also, when is too much too much? He was over 100 yards against the Carolina Panthers and still hit that number by rushing for, what, about $120, $125 last week? Does Russell Wilson, going up against a good pass rush, have to scramble a little bit more? He's listed at 7.5. How about Jalen Hurts, though? The Eagles, as we know, have a good offensive line. But one of the best pass rushes, if not the best in the NFL, does come out of Pittsburgh. And they're healthy on that front seven to get after the quarterback. Is that a way to attack it? It's a lot of fun to watch it play out. I do think the Eagles are the better football team and at home and have more weapons at their disposal, but it should be a great game. So let's flip it over to the other great game that we're anticipating on Sunday afternoon, and that's also at the 425 number. So make sure you got your YouTube TV out there. Make sure you got your NFL ticket. You can put those bad boys side by side and get after it. But Buffalo is heading to Detroit after losing to the Rams last week. And you might say to yourself, well, okay, the Buffalo Bills still going to win the AFC East. Maybe they can still track down Kansas City. But then you look over your right-hand shoulder like this. Oh, boy. We wanted the 1 seed. Maybe that could be unattainable now. The 2 seed, Pittsburgh wins. They pass the Buffalo Bills, and they drop to the 3 seed. So things start getting serious now at this point. But the line opened up in this game that look had at 2.5. It's still sitting at 2.5. It was as low as 1.5 this week as well with some of the line movements at different outlets. 52.5 is that total, now listed at 54.5. The question is, to me, is do you just outsmart yourself by saying, I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills? But I will agree with this. You probably would like Detroit even more if the Buffalo Bills had beaten the Los Angeles Rams last week on primetime action. High-scoring game, used a lot of energy on the road, fly home, then fly to Detroit. Granted, Buffalo to Detroit isn't all that far of a flight, but it's still a travel situation where you traveled to the West Coast last week. Are we looking at points? One thing we don't have to worry about, as we said, it's in a dome. But for me, if I'm looking at top defenses in the NFL, the Detroit Lions, they're number 3. You got to scroll down quite a ways here to get to the Buffalo Bills at Pro Football Focus, which has them listed at the 24th highest ranked defense in the NFL. Advantage obviously, going towards the Detroit Lions. If you look at overall offense, the Lions listed as number 2 in the NFL. I love the Buffalo Bills on offense, and they're still top 10 coming in at 9th. But the Buffalo Bills lost a football game, guys, where Josh Allen scored 3 touchdowns on the ground and threw for 3 in the air. 6 total touchdowns, and they couldn't come away with a victory. So how is that defense for the Buffalo Bills going to hold up against the Detroit Lions? And is it just so simple as I said? You see the 2.5 and you go, I just want to bet that way. Because like from the ticket counter also, only about a quarter of the tickets coming in on the Detroit Lions. I can't understand that for the life of me. Am I missing something? I understand Detroit is getting banged up on defense, but I just think it's a really good spot for Detroit. I do. And it's not obviously chalky from a public side where the public is backing the Buffalo Bills. Would I be shocked if the Bills won? No. Bills are a great football team. But if you are looking at passing props in this game, Jared Goff, 255.5, and just slightly behind him is Josh Allen at 254.5. Touchdown passing props in this game are juicy. Jared Goff to throw 2 of them, that's minus 165. Josh Allen to throw 2 of them, that's a minus 130 price. Receiving props, got some pretty good ones here. Nothing coming in right now in FanDuel, which again, I don't have enough time on the radio show to flip back between books and find those numbers. I just wanted to keep it simple. Amon-Ra St. Brown is 66.5, Jamison Williams at 52.5. Nothing coming up right now for that wide receiving core for the Buffalo Bills that has been banged up. Of course, they're going to be hanging numbers over the weekend. It'll be interesting to see. Rushing props, you know the usual suspects. The lead dog is David Montgomery in the backfield. Usually starts the game, but always the yardage typically goes to Jahmyr Gibbs. Gibbs listed at a 68.5 on Sunday, and Montgomery at a 55.5. And then you have James Cook, who they really need to get going. I believe he rushed for under 20 yards last week, I want to say. 51.5 is his number, and Josh Allen at 37.5. So if you are looking at this game optimistically from a Buffalo Bills side, you know it's got to be Josh Allen. He's got to perform unbelievably well for them to win. Like it's one of those games that you saw last night in rainy conditions, provided a different pathway. Hey, Matthew Stafford threw for $160, no touchdowns. You would normally say, Donnie, give me a breakdown of that game. What happened? You say, well, the Rams got blown out, but they won because there was extenuating circumstances. I'm telling you right now, if Josh Allen doesn't have a game where he hits his numbers, and when I say his numbers, 250 passing, 2 touchdowns passing, and rushing for 37.5 yards, what it's listed here at FanDuel. I don't think they can win this ball game. Meanwhile, you have a lot of different avenues for me to win the game for Detroit. As we said, better overall defense, better overall running game, maybe more weapons even at the wide receiver position because Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Winston are better than any 1-2 combo. And I love Shakir. Amari Cooper starting to come around. I'm still giving that nod to Detroit. But also, I am an oddsman, as I like to say, and that number is a little bit interesting to me at 2.5, not moving to 3, despite the best team in the NFL being the Detroit Lions at home. Usually that is a buyer beware that you might want to be wary of. If we are looking at touchdown props in this game overall, Jahmyr Gibbs at a buck minus 150. David Montgomery identical at a minus 150. You can probably set your clock to at least one of those guys getting a touchdown. Last year, I was a huge David Montgomery guy, just about every week betting him to score, and he did. And you would do well if you still had that option. But we see that Jahmyr Gibbs is the more dynamic talent. So it's one of those where, like, hey, this guy can break it at any time, or he can catch a pass and run it into the end zone. But you never want to leave Montgomery out. That's why those price points are identical at a minus 150. But if you are looking, because points are expected in this game, as the listed total is 54.5. So you almost feel confident like, hey, minus 150 for both running backs with Gibbs and Montgomery isn't a bad price. And then you start to shuffle even down lower. Amon-Ra St. Brown, leading dog here for the Detroit Lions, minus 110. James Cook, running back starter for Buffalo, minus 105. Then you get into the plus money points here. Josh Allen, plus 115. Sam Laporta, plus 160. Shakir, 175. Cooper, 180. Keon Coleman, 180. Where's my guy Jameson? Where's he at? Jameson, plus 195. You don't think he could hit a home run at home on Sunday in the Dome? Man, we got 2 good football games at 425. We got a ways to go. Let's work our way around the other games on this card. Having fun today on a Football Friday right here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Donnie Rightside, and I'll be right back.
Loser is kind of a mean-spirited slur.
But it doesn't have to stick.
Tell them to listen to SportsGrid and fix it.
No, thank you.
Later.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. Shop Chuck Sanders. Thursday Night Football, the Rams beat the 49ers 12-6. LA scored 4 field goals for the win. Josh Carty finished 4 for 4 on field goals. His longest was a 48-yarder. On the other side, Jake Moody, 2 for 2 on field goals, including a 53-yard kick. The win improves LA to 8-6, while the Niners drop to 6-8. LA stays alive in the playoff hunt. They moved within a half game of division-leading Seattle. Both quarterbacks were held in check. Matthew Stafford, 16 of 27, 160 yards. Brock Purdy for the Niners, 14 of 31, 142 yards. He got picked off once and sacked 3 times for a loss of 14. Either quarterback threw a touchdown pass. The Rams return to action against the Jets on the road. That game's a week from Sunday, while the 49ers will visit Miami on the same day. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Ever find holiday shopping overwhelming? We've got to figure out what they want and then find it all too. Enter Kohl's. They have the best gifts all in one spot. The toys your kids have been asking for, the silk PJs she's been eyeing, and the stylish sweater he'll love. And you can get 20% off some of your gifts during their customer appreciation event. Yup, holiday shopping at Kohl's is the move. Select styles, offers end December 15th. Some exclusions apply. Coupons do not apply to toys. See store or Kohl's.com for details.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZQuil.
ZQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZQuil nights. Explore our products at ZQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
If SportsGrid was a burrito, we'd be the one with steak and carnitas packed so full every bite made your cheeks poof out like Dizzy Gillespie, so the name stuck and now even your mother calls you Dizzy. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
We love a full Sunday slate. We love no bye weeks in here. We even love a double-header on Monday Night Football. Even the games don't look all that good. Hopefully we get some juice in those 2 dome games, as we said. But Sunday will be action-packed, and we just went over the 425 games between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia and Buffalo and Detroit. The other 4 o'clock games leave a little bit to be desired, right? But that's why they give you 2 of the showcase games in there. Indianapolis and Denver. Okay. Tampa, Chargers. That's actually not a bad football game. 45.5 is a total. Justin Herbert really banged up in that game. So we're going to see how he practices today. Looking at Jordan Rannon, he says, Drew Lock heel out of his boot per Brian Dable. Maybe has the best chance to be an emergency quarterback this weekend. Again, that's for the Giants. Basically headed nowhere with Tommy Cutlets at quarterback against Baltimore. So let's take a look at some of that 1 o'clock slate here. Jaden Daniels in Washington going to travel to New Orleans, who they are listing as, we're not sure who the quarterback's going to be, but we think it's going to be Jake Haener. Good luck in that one against a dead football team. Now you're at the end of the season where it's teams really fighting for playoff positioning, which is good. That means your team's going to give it its all. And or fighting for draft positioning, which means you're not putting your best foot forward. Washington trying to make the playoffs. New Orleans not doing anything and without their starting quarterback. Good luck in that one. 7.5. The look-ahead line in that was 3.5 as a favorite towards Washington. That's now up at 7.5 at just about every outlet. And a total that was 47.5 now bounced back to 43. Not a lot of real intrigue in that one. But we do have some intrigue in this next game. The Miami Dolphins taking on the Houston Texans. The Dolphins looking to hang in the playoff race. Houston looking to obviously make the playoffs, but certainly win their division. This line opened up at 2.5. It's still 2.5 at FanDuel, but it's 3s across the board. Just saw a key nugget of information as the Miami Dolphins. Looks like Josh McDaniel said that it looks like he's pessimistic that Teron Armstead can play this weekend. You're going against a pretty good pass rush against the Texans. That could hurt them just a bit. Also, other news here. Odell Beckham released from the Miami Dolphins. You want to talk like, you're like rap videos. Hey, the ski mask way you hear. Like, that means you're robbing people. Odell Beckham has been maybe the FBI's #1 suspect for the past 5 years with robberies. He has robbed every single franchise he's been with. He robbed the Cleveland Browns. The Rams gave you a little bit. Maybe he was the best player in the Super Bowl before he got injured. But then he put the ski mask on and got like $20 million from the Ravens and didn't do a damn thing. Then he got the ski mask out again and went to Miami as the third wideout. And you knew it was off right away with Odell Beckham. When it's like, okay, we signed Odell. Hey, welcome to the locker room. Try to fight for that third wideout position. Oh, by the way, he's not going to practice in OTAs. That's all right. Maybe he's got something going on. Maybe he's got, personal issues to handle, and he'll be back for camp. Oh, by the way, he's not going to practice in camp either. That's interesting. Why'd you sign him? Oh, he's not really going to be ready to start the season. Even gets a little bit more interesting. And oh, yeah, when he does play, he's going to run routes and basically just do cardio. That man, retire. He was a sensation when he broke on the scene with the Giants. But since the Giants, he has done diddly out there. And he still gets paid as if he's a #1 wideout or can still play football. I don't know where it went wrong. Maybe it was just the knee injury coming up from the Rams. But at this point, boy, he has stolen millions the past couple of years and released from the Miami Dolphins. But getting back to that game, it's 46.5. It's 2.5. You know me last week on Sunday. My best bet was Tua Tagovailoa over 1.5 touchdown passes. Stone cold loser for 75% of that game. Goes to overtime. We get that. We cash in tickets. We have some fun. Can they do that on the road? Or is this the final week that Houston has a week to be rested and ready for this one and is the favorite, but also not a favorite by a lot? Like, given those Detroit Lions, Buffalo Bills vibes, like, why are we only favored by 2.5 points at home here against the Dolphins? I do think there's a chance to get points, though. Mike McDaniel is a good offensive coordinator, and I don't want to say Tyreek Hill is healthy, but healthier than what we saw past couple weeks, where it's like, hey, you know what? We lose football games, and we might not make the playoffs. I'm actually going to go to IR and get this figured out. He's actually been a pretty good wide receiver over the past couple weeks, no doubt about it. But for me, it's hard to beat teams in the NFL as is. It's even harder to beat teams playing for a lot at home. I lean towards the Houston Texans in that game. Aaron Rodgers versus Mac Jones. The New York Jets invent new ways to lose on a week-to-week basis, which included last week against the Miami Dolphins. You got to be kidding me with that loss. You're up 3 with roughly, 30 or less seconds to go in the game. You give up a big kickoff. A couple plays later, 50-plus yard field goal. You go to overtime. You lose the coin toss. Tua goes right down the field with the help of Jonnu Smith. Couple rocket screens, followed by a touchdown pass. You lose that game as well. If there was ever you could go to trial and say, Mr. Judge, this isn't fair. Can we reverse some of these decisions? Because the Jets being winners and losers is such a fine line. But that fine line is defined by the organizational structure that you have, which is led by Aaron Rodgers. It's just leadership. When you get into the foxhole here, who's going to band together and win this football game on sheer might? They can't do it. That's a soft football team with the Jets. That's why the record they have, and they can't make the playoffs. Once again, they haven't made the playoffs in damn near over a decade at this point. Mac Jones stinks. They're not playing for anything. So my question to the public out here is, when you look at the Jets, they're favored. They're not even home. And I've been on this network ad nauseum going, let me get this straight. The Jets with this terrible record they should be favored against anybody. Now, we know Jacksonville isn't good. You're laying more than a field goal with the Jets on the road when their season is over? I might have to look at a team total for the Jets, so I'm just being real at this point. Their 3 wideouts will still be out there. That Jacksonville defense is basically quit. Is that a sneaky team total? Should we bring back team totals this week? There are some opportunities across the board that we might be able to fire away on. It's about making money. I didn't make any of it last night. We're going to get back. It's Get Back Sunday on a Football Friday. One more segment to go. I'm your boy DRS, and I'll be right back after this break.
Bad boys, what you gonna do?
It's a choice.
Roll the dice.
Or listen to us.
Luck is finding a good parking spot. Strategy is getting the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The new SportsGrid app is now available on iOS and the App Store. Experience the ultimate sports betting companion that provides personalized content from your favorite hosts. In-depth matchup previews, game and prop picks, live odds, stats, scores, and more. All in one place. And of course, on the SportsGrid app, you can tune into our live television and radio coverage anytime. On the go, wherever you are. Download the SportsGrid app on the iOS App Store now. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. SportsGrid Radio presents Gridiron Greats.
Running back Walter Payton set the then NFL rushing title in 1984, passing Jim Brown. Sweetness was a rare combination of power, speed, and agility. In 1999, Payton lost his life at the age of 45. Former teammate Dan Jiggins.
He was, at all stops along the way, the most ferocious competitor that I've ever seen.
For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Carver and Lisi.
I am stunned, Joe.
Stunned. No, I'm not.
I don't say that very often around here. I'm stunned he's coaching college football.
I'm not.
Stunned.
I'm not. He's going younger lately. He's going younger. You forget the schematics. He's running young. Yeah, I mean, he's got the eye of the tiger lately. No, you know what I mean?
Doesn't make a lot of sense.
It's Carver and Lisi with Mike Carver and Joe Lisi. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific. On the SportsGrid Radio Network.
You're listening to the voice of authority.
Sports gaming strategies and information on daily sporting events.
In other words,
information you can take to the bank. We are your trusted source for gaming, odds, and more. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
How do we feel about those Bengals out there, people? Going up against Tennessee, dead-in-the-water team. They can't score. They stink. Their only offense is Tony Pollard. And as I take a look at the practice reports, didn't even practice on Wednesday or Thursday due to ankle issues. Friday is obviously the last practice day where they give you the determination, basically if you're playing or not, on Sunday. Cincinnati be able to go in there. Line opened up at 3.5, now up to 4.5 at FanDuel. 5s at most other outlets, 46.5. They should be able to do whatever they want to that Titans defense. And the one thing we do know is Cincinnati stinks on defense. Tennessee stinks even worse on offense. So is this one of those where it's like, oh, no, you finally bought into Cincinnati, maybe able to make a run, and they disappoint you because why? Their defense can't stop anybody. But are you telling me Will Levis and maybe Tony Pollard not playing? Who's doing anything in that game? Are you taking any wide receivers? Is this the game Will Levis rises up? By the way, if we're looking on a Sunday, where you have a Sell Me Something segment, Will Levis might find his way in there. Like, if you can't do anything against Cincinnati's defense, just leave the league. And Will Levis is a terrible, terrible quarterback. I know he's still young, but signs of life just aren't there for me for him. Another 1 o'clock game, it's Baltimore and New York. New York has raised that white flag. They were trying to get a look at Drew Lock, but he got beat up. They were looking at Tommy DeVito, but he got beat up. They can't block anybody. And Baltimore is going to be angry coming into this football game. And when you say angry, they're a road favorite. 16.5 points. I don't know where that sits in the realm of who's been favored by how much over the past couple years. That seems like it's unbelievably high. 16.5 on the road. By the way, like I always joke about my dad. No matter what through his gambling life, he would always be like, that's too many points. You could tell him 2.5 points was the favorite, or 3.5 or 4.5. He'd always just say that's too many points to give him. 16.5 as a road team here. Do the Giants have a pulse? Or is it just let you know, like, bet the first half Baltimore because multiple touchdowns by Derrick Henry and also Lamar Jackson? That's outrageous. That's a crazy price tag. Is anybody interested in taking a road team that has to win by 17? Or will you say, well, Donnie, what's the final score going to be for you? 34-6? That covers. 34-10, easily covers. 34-17, that covers. What are we actually getting out of the Giants in that game? My goodness. And the team total's got to be crazy. Let me just do this real quick. Let me take a look at that game. What is the team total here for the Baltimore Ravens going up against the New York Giants? Let me just flip over here quickly to FanDuel. All right, so we got Ravens total points. It's 28.5. In what world did they not score 28.5? 4 touchdowns, right? And by the way, Bet365 used it last week. Didn't want to take a team total of the Philadelphia Eagles, which was, I think, closer to that 29.5. But I bet over 2.5 touchdowns. That's all they scored in that game was 3 touchdowns. One of them was added with an extra 2-point conversion. So maybe you're looking at the Ravens again with 3 touchdowns. You don't think the Ravens score 3 touchdowns against the Giants? Well, I got a lot of work to do this afternoon, especially after being humbled yesterday. And sometimes you get mad at beats that you think might be bad. That wasn't even bad beats yesterday. That was just the game was wacky and wonky across the board. But the Ravens on offense, they should be able to do whatever they want to that Giants defense. How in tune will they be? How many points do they need? But I know Lamar Jackson is upset right now with what's going on in Baltimore. And they say, hey, can you run the table? It's look, the only thing I'm focused on is beating the New York Giants. And I think they have a chance to beat the hell out of the New York Giants here. Kansas City, Cleveland, rainy, windy conditions. You see Cleveland getting 4.5 to 5 points. That's an interesting one here because we know the MO of the Kansas City Chiefs. They'll win that game, but can they win it by more than 4.5? Has the bottom fallen out on the Cleveland Browns? We'll certainly find out. Didn't look all that great against the Pittsburgh Steelers last week. Dallas and Carolina. Cooper Rush, and I just retweeted something with Jerry Jones. We're going to play to the very end. We're going to try to win every play we can. Fantastic. Ruin your draft position. Don't get a good football player, but beat teams out there like Carolina. And by the way, Carolina is a favorite against the Dallas Cowboys this weekend. How about that? The 4 o'clock games, we talked about the Philadelphia Eagles, Pittsburgh Steelers, Buffalo Bills, Detroit Lions, Indianapolis, Denver. Okay game here. Open up at 4.5, 3.5 now at FanDuel. 4s and 4.5s across the board. So shop around, get the best pricing there. Does Tampa have any juice against the Chargers? I want to see that final practice report here for the Los Angeles Chargers. Let me just see what they have going on from at least their Friday practice. Disley hasn't practiced. Banged up Bosa like he always is. Khalil Mack returned back to full practice here. Ladd McConkey limited practices as he tries to fight back. He sat out last week. Same thing with Herbert. Sat out Wednesday, practiced on Thursday. We'll see what he does Friday. For Chris Brown, the wheels of steel, Donnie Wrights out on a solo mission of Moneyline. We'll see you back on Monday. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
We're everywhere. You can get SportsGrid on the radio, TV, the internet.
We've got your number, Sporto.
That shirt doesn't match. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.